I have to apologize because I didn't really come prepared to read for open mic, so I'm going to be reading off of my phone, and I also didn't bring my glasses, so it'll be a little interesting.
Mine.
I have astigmatism, I don't know. But I was really excited to hear so much work tonight about place, because a lot of my poetry, and in my fiction as well, has to do with place. I don't know if it's because I'm a Southerner and I have this somehow like deep-seated connection to place, or if I'm an erstwhile geologist, so we get really stoked about landscape and stuff. So I'm just going to read some poems that they will pull off the internet. The first one...
But they're yours.
They're mine, yes. They're my poems that happen to also be on the internet.
There's going to be a plagiarism check later.
No plagiarism. I should mention I am an MFA student at the University of Central Florida in fiction, but I'll be reading poetry tonight because that's what I do too. And so I write a lot about South Carolina. That's where I'm from, if you couldn't tell by the state flag, tattoo on my back, and my bedazzled Gamecock phone. So this first poem, a local arts magazine in my hometown, Columbia, had a contest called One Book, One Poem. And there was this event going on where they wanted everybody to read the same book. And the public libraries had all these events and all this wonderful stuff. And for the second year in a row, they chose a book that I had already read. This particular one was Saints of the River by Ron Rash, who is a South Carolina native and now lives in North Carolina. And if you have not read any of his work, you really should. And in this novel, it's set in the upstate of South Carolina along the Chattooga River, which is the border with Georgia and also where the novel Deliverance is set. And a young girl drowns while on vacation with her family. They can't reach the body because it's stuck under this like vortex under a waterfall, and it's a protected river, so they can't dam it to get to the body, and so that's the premise of the novel. And for this contest, we were to write poetry inspired by the novel. And I was honored enough to be chosen as a finalist in that contest. And as I pulled it up on the website, I forgot that they had asked us to speak a little bit about the inspiration. So I'll read that real quick, and then I'll read the poem. Of her poem, Elegy, Richardson said, "It's hard to think about Saints of the River without giving some consideration to death by drowning. I have often heard people say that drowning would be one of the worst ways to die. But is it? I was writing a lot about landscape at the time I wrote this poem, and I felt that if I must return to the dust, as they say, South Carolina Blue Ridge would be one of the most beautiful places to do so. I wanted to present death, even sudden death, as peaceful instead of fearful." So this is Elegy. "This is how you'll end. Water to water, womb to womb, whippoorwill for a dirge, pine trees for pallbearers. You go, wrapped in river satin, go and cross over. Every molecule of wayfaring water vibrates with your memory. Your name echoes down the escarpment. The weathered arms of Appalachia cradle you in sleep, whisper lullabies as old as earth. This is a good way to go." Now if this will load correctly. Oh shoot. I have to flip through this thing to get to it. This is a poem that also has references to Appalachia and was published in a local little magazine there in Columbia, South Carolina called Bluefish Digest. And I'm going to have to scroll in here for a minute. A little hard to see. All right. And this is called Walk in the Woods. And there's some references to the brief time I spent living in California. I really appreciated your reference to tectonic plates. I lived near San Francisco, and I was like, yay! Science! So, Walk in the woods. Conifers. Pine trees press in close like bars of steel. The needles on the ground attack bare feet and hide the monsters that we know exist. Snakes and chiggers, fleas and ticks, mosquitoes buzz from ear to ear, searching for bloody meals. Fire ants attack in swarms. No place is safe in a Carolina pine forest, so I left to find some rest. But pine trees in California are twisted, stunted, and strange. Their needles hiding lions and bears. My body longs for sandhill riverscapes and level ground to wander. Granite. I guess that was too big of a pause, huh? Granite. This is the reason I came home again, to see the Appalachian colors change and feel the granite steal my body heat. Quartz and feldspar take my beating heart, and in exchange the tumbling earth gives me this: religion, birth, moving rock, and molten mantle, patient in its cooling. It tells me to slow down and wait for the scouring work of waterfalls. Erosion will take time. Ice must freeze and thaw and freeze again before I am as strong as these worn hills. This is not the granite of Yosemite. This old stone is home. And one last, if it will load. It's thinking about it. So I got my geology degree at the College of Charleston, which is in the South Carolina Low Country, which if you have not ever visited, you should. I mean, Hilton Head's pretty awesome, so, you know. And one of my research projects was looking at soils in salt marshes, which involved me going out to salt marshes at like 6 a.m. at low tide and kind of digging in the dirt, as my mom likes to call it. So this is a poem about that experience and watching the sunrise on the marsh. And this is called Along the Edisto. Do you know the smell of clough mud, like something rotting at low tide? Have you tromped through waist-high reeds at 6 a.m.? Do you know the feeling of low country mud in your hand? Have you felt it suck you into itself as you plunge your arm into the muck, through layers of dead Spartina grass, seeking data that soil holds below the strata, of plants, of snails, of fiddler crabs, to where the river and the earth move in time? This is what the scientists do: scrape their knuckles on old oyster beds, leave pieces of themselves behind, then head back to the lab to calculate sunrise in the marsh.